Hello, and welcome to the High Power Podcast with Dr. J. It is so great to have you all here with us in the studio tonight. Tonight, this is episode 3, and we are going to talk about something that is very timely and very fitting, and that is selling yourself and marketing your skills as a health information professional. Over the years, we've seen how health information has changed so much. We've seen how the skills that are needed to be successful in the field have evolved. Are you up on your skills? Do you know what's going on in the field? And how do you let somebody know that you are the best fit for those roles? So tonight, we hear from 2 of the most dynamic women in our profession. That is Beth Friedman and Connie Renda. They're going to come and bring their perspectives. And then we're going to hear from Marjorie Rosen. Say, hey, Marjorie. And she's going to talk about the HIMage. What does that mean? You know, when we see doctors, we see them in scrubs, and we see them with a stethoscope, and we see nurses, we see them in their scrubs, maybe with a syringe or something. But when they see us, when they see a health information professional, what's that image? What is it that they see? So let's go ahead and dive into this tonight. So our topic, again, selling yourself, marketing your skills as an HR professional. So Marjorie, HIMage is the image we project as HR professionals, how we show up, how we speak, how we represent the field. We'll dig into that later, but I want everybody, as you watch this, to think, what does your HIMage say about you? So, Connie, let's get started with you. What does selling yourself mean to you, and how has it played a role in your career?
Well, I've had a long career in sort of sales. So I've never had a job where I'm a salesperson, but I've always wanted to either promote my product, my service, my company. And so I think it's really about developing the relationships and making sure that people are aware of what you're doing, offering connections for them so that it's a very mutual. It's not like, I want to sell you this, widget and you should buy it for no reason. It's really about, what do you need and how can I provide that to you, as opposed to, here's what I'm selling and you need to buy it. And then on a personal note, I think it's really about making sure that your brand, your personal brand, is constantly updated and fresh and appropriate and professional, so that when you're talking to people, they know who you are based on you and not necessarily based on your company or based on your job or your, personal status, but they know you as a person, and they've followed your career and followed you through, and know that you have integrity and that brand has been consistent.
So Beth, same question. What does it say about you, your brand?
I see personal branding very similar to what we do with our clients in branding their company or their products or their services. And I think we always consult with clients and tell them it all begins with really defining your goal. Like, what is it you want to achieve? So I would think the same with your personal brand. Like, do you want to pursue a leadership role at a HIMA, right? At the regional, state, national level? Do you want to, within your own organization, maybe you want to branch out into a new area, or you want to be involved in a new initiative that the organization is doing? So kind of start with that goal in mind of what you want to achieve. And then I think once you have that, it's like, well, who do I need to your point, Connie, who do I need to build that relationship with? Who do I need to talk with, to connect with? Who needs to understand what my special skills are related to that goal? and why I'm a good fit for that goal. So it's, it's defining the goal, identifying who that target audience is. And then it's all about getting to them and connecting with them and building that relationship. So I agree with Connie on that point for sure.
Yeah. So it's, it's about our image, it's how we project, is about how we sell ourselves. But even with that, there's some pitfalls. I know Connie mentioned about staying fresh and and I know Beth, you talked about that personal branding. And one of the things that I see, especially with our professionals that have been in the field for a while, and even with some of our emerging professionals, they don't update their headshots. So who they see on that picture is not, or on that LinkedIn is not who they see. And so, of course, Martin's going to get into that about HIMage, internal and external. But, that's one of the pitfalls. That's, we don't keep it up to date. We don't update those resumes. And when you don't, and you're not adding and keeping that skills inventory and the inventory of your wins, how can you sell yourself when you're not even keeping up with all the good things that you're doing so that you can market yourself? And when you keep up with it, that's a good way for you to develop that personal brand. I know for me, that was one of the things that I wanted to do. I had like little Post-it notes where I was like keeping up with, okay, now what am I doing? What did I learn? What did I gather? And then take those skills and help that to develop your brand. So Marjorie, I don't want to leave you out. Tell me, what is your take on personal branding?
My take on personal branding is to really identify who you are. What is your message out to the world? What is your vision? And then find something that's kind of unique about yourself. Really, if you ever looked at some of the different presentations and kind of like what you were talking about, like updating your photo and things, for a long time I did have one photo and I actually always wore it. I always wore my little necklace, and that was part of like my brand, because it represented certain things to me. And as I continued to move on and I created an audience and I worked through my visions and things like that, people started to recognize that piece of me. And so it became part of it. And then I was able to start sharing more than that. Just like something like another piece of clothing. Later on, you're going to see me in a hat. Talk about, your personal branding. What does it actually mean? How do you display all those different things? It is important because you have a personal brand and you have a professional brand. And I think people need to understand that is that, you brand yourself in your profession by the things that you do and how you help others, kind of what Connie was saying. Then you have your personal brand that represents who you are and humanizes you as a person. That's my point.
So let's go back for just a minute and talk about these common pitfalls. What are some of the things that HR professionals should stop doing when it comes to market themselves? Connie, I'm going to start with you. What do they need to stop doing right now when it comes to marketing themselves?
Well, it's interesting, Beth's perspective about the goal piece, because if you know that you have a certain goal, let's say you want to advance in your organization, then stop picturing yourself as that one pigeonholed job description. Like, I know a lot of HIM directors who are absolutely brilliant businesswomen, and they would never take a class or do a master's program or even do like an online like Cornell Business School kind of thing, because they just don't think they're able to sit at those tables. And so I think stop, holding yourself back if that's your goal. If your goal is just like, I want to just stay in this job forever and retire in this job, wonderful. There's a place for that too. But I think if your goal is to get, farther advanced and kind of make your personal brand as that smart business person who can take on your organization, then advance yourself. That's I think I think you have to just kind of morph. I mean, HIM professionals, we're great at morphing our departments. We're not so great at morphing ourselves sometimes.
For sure.
So,
and so Beth, from a PR perspective, what do we need to stop? What do they need to stop doing? And we're talking about seasoned professionals and even the emerging professionals. What do they need to stop doing when it comes to marketing themselves?
I totally agree with Connie. Don't stop limiting yourself. Just because you've been in a certain job or role or career for a long time, that doesn't mean that you can't explore something new. Like, I think our industry, healthcare, I'm talking healthcare in general, so dynamic, right? Especially right now. We have so much going on with like social determinants, AI, genetic based medicine and treatments. There's just so many new things coming out. So I would say, find something that interests you and that you might want to look toward growing into, and just start diving in. Right, Connie, you mentioned classes. There's a lot you can do with LinkedIn. I know you have asked for us to do some practical steps later, but I've got a lot on LinkedIn because it really can be your friend. There is so much you can discover and get engaged with and get connected with on LinkedIn if there is something new or interesting that you want to expand into in your future career.
One of the things that I always tell people, whether they're emerging professionals or existing, think about your skills. Look for jobs based on what you know how to do and not just your credentials. And I use the phrase, don't lead with your letters, lead with your life. What life experiences do you have? What skills have you acquired that you can get into roles? I remember when I was still teaching, I would talk to students about, hey, have you thought about doing project management? Well, I don't know project management. What skills do you have related to, if there's something that you want to do, the steps that you need to take to get it done, the people that are involved, how much money it will cost? And you can use those, you can gather those skills from just about anywhere, especially in your academic program. And then when you think about being in an HIM department, anytime you're putting new processes in place, you're doing parts of project management. You're still doing parts of process improvement. There are those things that we can do that sometimes we do short ourselves, but we don't explore outside of just those linear roles. Episode 1, we talked about that. We talked about those non-linear roles outside of just traditional HIM. And I always tell this, and I crack this joke and people laugh, but it's true. I have not worked in HIM as a production coder since the Bush administration. 2003 was when the last time I was a coder, and I have not worked in a HIM department probably since 2008. So my skills have been useful in other places. We can do so much with our skills as health information professionals. We just have to understand what those skills are. What does it mean that we know how to do? And then how do we market that effectively? So when it comes to what you need to stop doing, stop limiting yourself to just working in HIM and look at what else you can do. So
That's true. Hey, Jasmine, let me add in real quick. There's a lot of organizations. We just did this internally at my company, but one of our clients also did it. So there's a lot of companies and organizations that are now doing skills-based assessments where, just exactly to your point, they're not looking so much at roles and degrees and credentials as they're looking at what are your skills and where can those be applied. So truly moving to sort of that skills-based organization. It's happening. So I see it, out in the industry quite a bit.
So let's get into the how. Beth, can you give us a few tools of how HR professionals can use those to build visibility and value? Did I lose you?
Is it for me?
Is it Beth?
Beth.
Okay. Yeah, no, I'm here. Let's talk about LinkedIn. LinkedIn is your friend. Please use this platform. It's really great. Definitely get a new headshot. I met an HIM. Actually, she's now VP Revenue Cycle about 2 weeks ago. And I went to her LinkedIn after. I was like, that's not the same person. So definitely update the headshot, but update the entire profile. Your education, ask people to give you recommendations. There's a recommendation place in the bottom. Ask folks to give you recommendations. There's a lot you can do with it. Just keep it fresh. And then, I mentioned thinking about things that you're interested in. So I don't know, I'll give the example of social determinants of health, which I just gave. Find the key opinion leaders, find the people that are thought leaders in that area that you want to pursue and connect with them and start following them and have conversations with them. I mean, LinkedIn is a social media platform. It's a professional one, but it's still a social media platform. And the more you can connect there with other people, the better. So I definitely am a huge proponent of using that platform, no matter what that goal is. or no matter what you're looking to do, is to really make the most of it. And there's just so much you can do there. And there's groups you can follow. You can share interesting news bits that you find. Say you're very interested in AI, right? In AI, in let's say clinical coding and the use of it. Maybe you start posting things that you read about that and sharing things about that. So it's definitely very dynamic, and it's a good way to connect with people.
Awesome. So, kind of, what tools can you share that people should use to build their visibility and their value?
Sorry, was that for me?
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I think that, Beth's idea too about LinkedIn, I mean, it's just fantastic. It really is such a great platform, and I just love that it's being used I like it when it's used appropriately. I mean, I try to teach my students, make sure you're like having a good headshot and making sure you're creating value. Like, what are you bringing to your LinkedIn? Like, why should I connect with you? Especially if you're connecting with people that don't know who you are, then they're immediately going to go at your profile. And if it's not something that's appealing, they're probably not going to be, you're not going to have any value to them. So I think that's the value of those kinds of platforms, and keeping it professional. No personal stuff, please, on LinkedIn.
Well, I'm guilty of that sometimes. I do share some stuff, especially if it's something funny that happens. But a lot, and if there's anything that where I see like the cross between my my spiritual vocation and my professional career, because my branding statement is being spirit led and data driven, and that's going back to me, being seminary trained, being a former pastor, helping churches collect data from their parishioners to determine what programs they need to implement based on the needs of their people, and not just because that's what you feel like you want to do. And
Right.
then that being a part of me doing data analytics in the profession. So I share that. It's every now and then I do share pictures of my cat and my
Well, I think you're, this is interesting that you mentioned that about your spiritual and your church kind of activities, because this is where people think, well, that's a personal thing, and that's not really, well, those things that you do in your volunteer time are actually probably more valuable, because those are things that you're not getting paid to do, but you're obviously passionate about it. You're using your skills that you maybe have learned in your profession, or maybe learned personally, and you're flourishing in that area and providing value to that organization. It doesn't matter that it's not a hospital, that it's a religious organization, or a pet shelter, whatever it is that you're passionate about, shows A, you have passion, and B, that you have the time and commitment to do those things. So I think that's not really personal, but I think it's kind of cool that you do that, I think.
Well, thank you. So, Connie, I'm going to start with a question for you. How do professionals inside healthcare organizations elevate their brand while still aligning with the company values?
Well, I think the first thing is you have to be with a company that aligns with your values. It has to be a good fit. If you are at, I've just always been with companies that have integrity, and I had a company named Integrity. So I love the idea of aligning your values with that, and making sure that your brand fits what you're representing all the time. And if it doesn't, you leave and move on to the next place, because sometimes that changes in the organization. But a lot of the hospital organizations, especially healthcare organizations, are really have high values, value, DEI and things that I value, for example. And so when it's easier, I think, in healthcare to align yourself with those kinds of um, patient care, patient-centered world, things that are sort of good for everybody, community-based. And that's one thing, too, that you can decide to work in healthcare organizations that have those. I met somebody who works at a critical access hospital. That's her passion. It's obviously she could make more money somewhere else, but she knows that that's a real need in rural healthcare. And so, similar to the volunteer thing that I just talked about, that can be her little mark on the world in in her regard. And so, we can get off on a whole nother tangent about compensation. Is not just about money. There's a lot of value for your personal self when you're aligning your brand with what you're passionate about and what the organization is passionate about.
And Beth, I do want to ask you the same question, but let me just give you a spin on that. I was a pastor, so I was getting paid for it, but because it was so different from my HIM career, that was what they felt like it was more maybe personal, and then it was seen as more of, which one are you doing? People always would even ask, so how are you doing so much? And so I had to find a way as part of my personal branding to show how these two connected, how my spiritual vocation and my career actually went hand in hand, because it wasn't just in a traditional role of just being a pastor. I was helping these churches implement things that help them be more effective in their community. So I don't think that people ever really, I had an opportunity previously to talk about how they went together. And now when I make those posts and I include them both, I make sure that there's a clear understanding of, hey, these two things are a part of me. I am an educator, and I educate on both sides. Whether I'm teaching about exegesis or whether I'm teaching about EHRs, I am an educator. I want to help you create a better understanding of anything that is brand new for you and how it can make your life better. So, yeah, that was my other job.
Is amen appropriate? Is that
Amen. You can say it.
I think we should all say it. Amen.
Yeah, it's like exactly.
Yeah, but it's so funny how I use a lot of my work, the things that I learned in the profession in church, like Agile, ProStar, EdCar, change management. That stuff, I had to use it there too, because when you come in and you're trying to put in new programs, the same stuff that applies in a hospital, the same stuff that applies here, because it's an organization. Mm-hmm. And so I made sure that I always showed, hey, I can use these skills. These skills are evergreen. I can use them wherever across. And that was a part of my personal branding. That was just a part of who I am. Thank you for coming back to join us, Marjorie. I know you had a power outage. So I'm going to go back to you, Beth. You tell me about aligning your brand with your organization, remaining aligned with your organization.
So for my organization, can you hear me?
I can. I'm gonna ask Beth, and then I'm gonna come to you about HIM. So Beth, right, so I know you working with PR and you working with internal but external facing. How do you help individuals when they're trying to align with these organizations to elevate their personal branding, but they still need to align with either company values and in some cases the values of their professional organization and their profession? How do you help them do that?
Well, first you have to define those, right? Define what those are for both the organization and for the individual. And to Connie's point, luckily in my own personal career, I have always worked for companies that do align with my values, and I seek them out. I mean, I the company I'm with now, Finn Partners, I chose them 4 or 5 years ago to sell my own business to become part of them. And the reason why I chose them was because of their values. They're very philanthropic. They have an eye on the human and all the humanistic needs we have in this world. And they also are very much about connecting the climate to human health. So there's a lot of things that really resonated with me. So I think that's really, and if you're struggling with that and you're not aligned, then maybe it's time to look for something new. Because I think, we have to find joy in our careers. We spend so much time there. And if there is a disconnect between what you value as a person, as a human and individual, then that's just going to be, I would think, difficult to stay in that and to remain personally happy and fulfilled. So I guess I would just really be a strong proponent to say, make sure those are aligned. And if they're not, then maybe look elsewhere.
Yeah. Well, when we have new graduates, when they come out of school, they just want a job. They don't really look at values. They don't look at that alignment. They look at that compensation. They look at where can I get this where can I get this money? You know, and so I think that it takes maybe a little experience and maybe going to these places to where you realize all experience ain't good experience and all money ain't good money. And then you have to say, I need to find something that is fulfilling where I don't dread every Monday morning, where I don't, dread getting up and going to work every morning. Because that is, that's a struggle, especially for some of our graduates, where when they finish school, they have a hard time finding something. So they'll take the first thing that they get and then they'll get into those roles and they won't like it. But then they're torn. Do I focus on who I am as a person, or do I look at what this says about me as a professional? And they'll stay in roles that really don't align with who they are.
And certainly staying in something, I get that, right? I know, right? Being out of school, I remember those days. So, certainly putting food on the table and paying the rent comes first, and it may for a while. And so, if there is a big disconnect and you can't really leave, maybe find one area at least in your organization where you have an interest, you're passionate about it, perhaps you want to explore more about it, and just get involved in that area, right? Maybe try and get on the committee for something that is of interest to you or passion for you, and find that one place where you can align if you're stuck in a situation like that.
So what advice do you give, Connie, for either students or either young emerging professionals, if they're just like, I just need a job, I just need to get my foot in the door, but they go in places and they're not happy or they're not fulfilled, and then they're back at that same place? What advice do you give them, Connie?
Well, I think early on in your career, like Beth said, you've got to pay bills and you're maybe paying back some student loans, or you're just struggling to just survive and support yourself. Sometimes you do have to work in a role. I mean, we've all worked in jobs that we didn't love.
No,
and
really?
Actually, I know, maybe
No, I
have. Or you love them at the beginning and then it doesn't align.
Yeah.
You realize, I mean, I remember working in a job when I was very young, and I was a notary, and the boss wanted me to get my notary license, and he said, I need you to notarize this thing. My ex-wife signed it. Don't worry about it. Just notarize it. And I was like, I don't think I'm supposed to do that. Like, I remember, I was so young, and I thought, I mean, now I would have been like, are you crazy? I probably would have like called somebody, like compliance hotline or something. But, I was so young, I just didn't know. And I was getting paid well. And I thought, okay, well, I didn't sign it, by the way. And I thought, time to move on, because this is where you realize. And I think learning from bad behavior is just as valuable as learning from good behavior. We have had bad bosses, and we go, okay, when I'm a boss, I'm not going to do that. And exactly. You mold your brand based on the good and the bad. It doesn't have to be all good, and it's not usually all good. So that's what I say to young, especially new professionals, regardless of age. Just learn from it. Learn when you do a scanning job all day long and you realize you don't want to be a scanner, go back to school and get a bachelor's degree, because then you probably won't have to do that job. Or if you love it, then do that job every day for the rest of your life. It's awesome. We need that too. So there's really a lot of learning in good and bad, I think.
I spoke with a newer professional, and she had one of those jobs that she didn't like. And I said, but what did you learn, even in your short period? What skills did you acquire? What can you put on their resume to say, I know how to do this because you learned it there? And so if there's even one thing that you can say that you learned there's value. It wasn't for nothing.
Exactly.
So for the past 25 years, some of the jobs that I had, I figured out pretty soon, I don't think that I want to do this. But then there were others where they were very fulfilling. It was just that once I got to that place where I was like, you know what? I think that it's time for me to move on. I moved on, not because I hated my job, but because there were more opportunities where I could take all these skills and then make even a greater impact somewhere else. Mm-hmm. So we've lost Marjorie, but I do want us to talk about HIMage. And so maybe she'll join back with us. I think they've got some bad weather where they are. All right, looks like you're back again. All right, you back again.
I'm back again.
Okay. Just in time. So we're talking now about HIMage. When you think about HIMage, it's all about the impressions that we leave, verbally, visually, and online. We know social media can really get you in trouble. How you present yourself can really get you in trouble. But it's what your peers, what your students, what employees remember. And building that strong image is about authenticity. It's about professionalism. It's about confidence. So, what is it that you would tell your, whether it's emerging leaders, or whether it's new students, whether it's existing professionals, about how learning how to use social media appropriately is a skill that can be sold and it's something that can benefit you in your career? Oh, I think we lost her again.
I'm sorry. Were you asking me?
Yes, that was your question.
Okay, that was my question. Okay,
That was your question.
so yes, emerging professionals. The HI image or your personal brand, your image can start today. Find somebody that you like to model. Find what skill they have that you want to model and start to incorporate that and use that as part of your verbiage, your language. Let people know that this is what you aspire to be. This is what you want to do in your pathway. You know, what is it that you want to represent? What is it that in 5 years, kind of what even Connie said earlier was think with the end in mind, with the goal in mind. Who do you want to be? Who do you want to be when you grow up? I mean, I'll tell you when I grow up, but what is that image? What does that look like? For those that are having career pivots, Dr. Jackson, that's exactly it, is what you said. The skills. What is the skills that you want to highlight? What is the branding that you have already done? You've already put time in to recognize and develop these things. Put those out there. Beth, you mentioned that in LinkedIn. Highlight those. Talk about your accomplishments. I love that you said get recommendations. Talk to your folks and let them know, like, this is a skill that I really want to hone. This is a brand that I want to bring. Can you help me, share with the world where I did that with you or for you or about you or something, so that it goes again to build that brand. Those are already leaders. Now your image needs to be gratitude and responsibility to bring up the next generation. It is not about just yourself, but it's now about bringing others up and helping others, because now you are the role model. People are looking to you to brand too. And one of the best forms of flattery is imitation. Therefore, go ahead. Go ahead. Let me show you. You want to act like me? Let me show you what it looks like. It means integrity. It means value. It means all those personal things. Before you have to kind of got to go through some skills. You got to go through experience before you value the value of a company, because you can align to it, because you know what your values actually are. You're grounded in that. And because of that, your brand is now true and others can align to it, can follow it, can be motivated by it. So that's where those are your three pathways.
So when it comes to HIMage, I know you may be having trouble hearing me. So when it comes to HIMage, you know, sometimes when they see health information professionals, and we're talking about the aesthetics of it right now, they don't really see anything. I don't like to use the word sexy when it comes to HIM not being sexy, but it's just like that attractiveness. You know, you see people in business suits and you see them in scrubs and you say, but what is it that we could do to make our profession and our professionals be more attractive, to bring other people in to say, hey, let me tell you about this place. How can we be more attractive? How can our image be more attractive? And I want all of you, I want to ask all of you that. What can we do to be more attractive?
I'll jump in. I think lean into the tech. I think that we, as a profession, I'm talking to people like myself who've been in it for a while, right? We are seen sometimes in our image as low tech. We need to flip that script. We need to be seen as high tech. And whether that's taking additional classes, whether it's getting involved in committees, AI governance, that's huge right now. So A lot of organizations are putting together their AI governance teams. Get involved in those things. Learn about the technology. Learn and read and understand what's going on there. Because I think leaning into the tech is absolutely something that will help our image.
Right. Because, like you said, they still use the term medical records. They still look at us as people that are pushing carts full of charts around in the hospital, and we haven't done that in 25 years. So the image is important. So, Connie, you tell me, how can we make HI more attractive?
Well, I really think Beth's idea is the best, but I was going more of like a personal brand, physical kind of thing. And so I'll respond to that side. And maybe I'm old fashioned. I feel like that, the old adage, like, dress for the job that you want.
Yes.
I feel like people I won't mention names, but there was somebody that showed up in leggings and a sweatshirt and her hair in a ponytail, and she's new to a company many years ago. And I thought, that's not really how you should show up. Like, and it's just not that hard to like brush your hair and like shower if you can. I mean, I'm hoping everybody has water and showers and I really I know it's old fashioned, but I really think that you should dress professionally. We have so much like business casual, throw on jeans and a t-shirt, and there's a time for that. I'm one of those people who have never taught in a pair of jeans. I've never gone to my school. I really only don't even wear them to school as a professor. And again, old school, all the professors wear it. I know there's people that show up in shorts and flip-flops. It's just, I've always felt like if I'm going to teach these guys how to be professionals and who I want to hire, I need to look like that person. And again, my personal brand is to look professional when I'm in a professional setting. So that's, I think, helped me, but also, again, old-fashioned. So that's maybe not traditional or pro. That's just how I am.
It's not traditional, but I'm right there with you. I have my power piece. So if you see me in that hot pink jacket, you know that I'm really feeling myself.
You want business. There's mean business.
Yeah, it's just like, and I even wrote that piece about the power of a hot pink jacket. But it's just something about the confidence of you putting on something that you really think that you look good in, and you think that you are owning it. And so, Deion Sanders, what did he say? When you look good, you feel good, and when you feel good, you play good. When you look good and you keep it together, you perform better. So even, I tell people, I know everybody wants to get a job and they're working from home. You can keep on your yoga pants, but put on a blouse.
Yeah.
Put your face on. Look like you want to look like money. That I tell them, look like confidence. Look good on
Look like money.
Look like money.
I like that.
There's an old book for women in business. It's called Lions Don't Need to Roar. And there's a lot of great tips in that. It's pretty old.
Is that a book?
A bit outdated by now, I'm sure. But one of the tips I learned in that book many years ago is just like right now, I just always have like a shirt over or a jacket over or a sweater. Like having the multiple layers just looks that little bit more professional. So that's just a quick tip that I learned many years ago.
Now I got to go find Lions Don't Need to Roar. Because I'm just saying, and there's just something, Connie made a great point. I can remember when I would have students that would show up for a mock interview and I would see empty cereal bowls in the background. I may see towels or a pile of laundry. They would have on a t-shirt with a stain on it, the hair up in a bun. And I'm just like, it's a mock interview. However, I probably need to dress like a real interview to get the practice in, just to get acclimated to presenting yourself like that. So, all right. So Marjorie is back with us. So anything, Marjorie, don't wear the hat. Like, don't, if you show up on camera with your hat on, I'm not going to be able to have a meeting because I'm going to be laughing. So I'm telling you.
We're talking about HIMage, right? We're talking about what you shouldn't have.
That is
all those different things. So yes, this is this is the gateway to that. It is
Gateway.
exactly that. It's about, you know, to that high image, right? Connie mentioned it, and it's exactly right. Great hat, perfect hat, not appropriate in the setting, right? And so we
No,
say, okay, let's take that off and let's bring in that professional setting. Let's discuss what that looks like. I love the fact that you said, you've got the layered look, Beth, and when Dr. J is in her power suit, yes, you can see it. And we started to create this new high class, high powered pieces of HIM professionals, and that's exactly true. HI is about who you are inside and being the most confident that you are. Something that I do that no one knows it because we don't have smell-o-vision is after putting that on, I wear perfume.
I do that too. I do that.
Sense is it's the sense most linked to memory. And so I will go ahead and spray on my money perfume, or if I need a boost of confidence, I'm going to put on gorgeous, or if I'm feeling powerful, like I have different scents to do that because, like what you said, it even though I'm presenting a certain way, I at home need to feel that. I need to lift myself up so that when I talk to somebody, I'm at my best self with my yoga pants on. But that front line is looking sweet. It's looking good. I am trying to be the best person that I am. HI needs that, not smell-o-vision, but they need their own scent that allows everybody to remember who they are in a flash. In a flash.
Well, professional appearance is not a skill that you can put on your resume, but it's definitely something that is marketable. It is definitely something that is that first impression and the ability to make that first impression and to garner the respect of the people that you're talking to just by the way you present yourself. While it is not something that you can put on your resume, it is not a skill that you can say, oh, I know how to do this. It's definitely something that can be seen. And I think that that's a really important part of the HIM professionals, whether they are, again, if they're students, if they're emerging, if they're existing and seasoned, it is that presentation that helps them to be marketable. So, got some questions for you. I'm going to ask you all these questions and y'all give me your answer. First thing, Beth, what's one thing you did that elevated your personal brand?
I applied for and won several awards. There are so many award opportunities out there. And once you start, like you realize how easy it is to apply and to submit it and win it, put it on your LinkedIn. I think I've gotten several over the years, and I think that has been super helpful.
All right, Connie, same question.
That's neat. I've never heard about that.
Oh, yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
Okay.
What is one thing you did to elevate your personal brand, Connie?
I think volunteering for and being the elected president for the California Health Information Association.
One of the largest CAs. We might
largest. I think it might be the largest member wise.
I thought you and Texas were right there, but it may be.
I don't know. I have to check.
Maybe.
I should know this as the president, I feel like.
They have the best meetings, though, California.
Oh, thanks. Hope you're coming in June.
So I need an invitation.
June 1st through 4th, Long Beach.
So, Marjorie, what is one thing that you did that elevated your personal brand? Oh, I think she's stuck again.
I'm willing to say that.
Okay. All right. What'd you say?
I said yes.
Okay.
Is that willing to volunteer? Nope. Still, am I choppy?
Okay.
Am I back again?
Willing to volunteer.
Okay, yes. Willing to say yes, willing to volunteer, willing to put myself out there like Beth and say, let me just try it and see what happens. It's the ability to say yes and be willing to try something new that you hadn't.
Okay. I think she's gone again. I think the weather must be really bad in Florida. I know we're getting some bad weather here in Alabama. The one thing that I did to elevate my personal brand is identify my North Star. When I figured out what it was that was most important to me, everything that I did aligned with that. And I can tell you what happened that helped me identify that. In 2020, and I know I've been in the profession for 20 years at that point, I was diagnosed with a blood condition. And the blood condition that I have, Adams TS13, it would cause acquired ITP, idiopathic thrombocytopenia purpura. Basically, my body did not recognize my platelets. And my platelets would bottom out, and I would have to go to the hospital and do plasma exchanges. And sometimes I would go, I may stay for 2 or 3 days. The last time I had to go, I stayed for a month. Basically, the doctor told me, bring your laptop, bring your clothes, and establish some sense of normalcy because you're going to be here for a while. I know the lady beside me, she was there for, I think, 77 days. When I got there, she had the same condition. And when I got a copy of my records, I noticed now this condition is most prevalent among African American women. There are 3 other women in my family that had the condition that had all passed, but they caught mine in time. But they had me registered as a Caucasian female. So if there was ever a study done on this condition, I would never be included. It was like it ignited a passion in me about how important data is in healthcare. The integrity, the accuracy, and the availability of data to help improve the lives of people. Then I thought about how we had collected data for, again, churches that were in places that had a huge population of elderly parishioners, had a huge population of elderly people around the vicinity of the church. And they wanted to implement programs for after school care for kids. Who coming? But we collected the data to see who needed the services and who would the services benefit. So it was when I discovered the importance and how data-driven decision making helped to shape so many things for the good of so many people. That was my North Star. That is my platform. I talk about how understanding data, about the biases that are found in data, how that can help shape healthcare. That's what pushed me. That elevated my personal brand to come up with the statement, spirit led, but data driven. I know what I want to do for me, but what does the data say? And how does it help to shape those decisions? That's what I did. I had to just figure out what it is that I love. Do I love everything else about HIM? Yeah. Do I love everything about theological studies? Yeah. Exegesis and eisegesis and explaining it too? Absolutely. I love it. I can do it all day. But what is it that I get passionate about? And it is the importance and the role of clinical data, not only in healthcare, but in research, and how that information can help improve the lives of people, whether it's in a church or whether it's in a unit in your hospital. That's what helped me develop my personal brand. So that was what it was. It took a while, but I got it and I like it. And this is where I am. So next question. When it comes to marketing our skills, what is one thing every HR professional needs to start doing today? Beth, I'll start with you.
I would say, we've talked about this earlier, set a goal. Set a goal. Where do you want to go? Where do you want to head? And start working towards that. So I think the first thing is really to set that goal. And, and I would suggest find some niche area in healthcare. We've got this huge industry that really interests you or you're passionate about. So, you know what, I want to get really involved in X and march forward. But setting the goal is the first step.
For sure. All right, Connie.
I'd say networking. So if you're an emerging professional, start networking through LinkedIn, through your professional association, volunteering, however you need to do that. There's still a lot of professionals who've been in the field, whether it's health information or other fields, for a long time that don't collaborate with their peers. And I always find that fascinating. So I host like a couple of groups through Verisma, but they're vendor agnostic, of just Epic users or just Cerner users. And they get together and they're all over the country. They have all different types of hospitals. They have all different vendors. They have all different, but they get together and they love it. They have so much in common and so many things that they learn in the 1 hour a month we spend together. And it's just super valuable. So I'd say if you're not doing that already, or if you are doing it, do it more. It's just great. It's very fulfilling too, I think,
Now
in
you
our
touched on
little
something.
silos that we live in.
Oh yeah, and you touched on something, and I just talked about this today at a state meeting. How we can be in our CAs or we're in organizations and we only talk to the people we know. That's not networking. When we are only talking to people within our CAs or talking to people that we know from whether we work with them or whether we went to school with them. But networking is about going beyond just the bubble. It's going beyond just those few people that you know. But we don't see a lot of that because even when we have these huge meetings, you still got these people over here, and you got these people over here, and you got these. But when do we talk? We can play bingo and say you need to go find somebody that has all these traits, and they'll still just go ask people that they know. Now, how did that help? How did that help with building communication skills and networking skills and being able to be collaborative and being able to be expansive and know people when you're only talking to the people you know? It doesn't work that way. So, Marjorie, what's your response? What do they need to start doing today?
Today, they need to start coming up with 3 skills that they would like to highlight. Figure out what is it that they already have. And then from that, I absolutely second Beth and third Connie is that once you know what your skills are, create that goal for yourself. Because now you have the tool and you have the avenue to get to your goal. And Connie's networking is the place and the situations that you need to get you to point A to point B.
Absolutely. And so I think the one thing that HR professionals should start doing today is try to get outside the bubble. You got to get outside your comfort zone. You got to talk to at least one new person a month. Connect with one person that you don't know directly, whether it's a straight line or a dotted line, and say, hey, I see we have similar interests when it comes to something, as far as skills, when it comes to our profession, and then talk to those people. We have a generation now where they are much more open about connecting. I get connections from students that say, hey, I see that you worked in this area. Can you give me some tips or can you help me with this? I love that. I love having those conversations with people, but you got to get outside the bubble. So I want us to practice meeting new people. I'm not saying y'all got to go to dinner. I'm not saying you got to invite them over for a holiday. I'm saying you need to talk to them and say, hey, I see you've been working with social determinants of health. Or do you have any upcoming projects? Can you tell me about them? I'd love to hear about them because how can you learn about it other than what's in that textbook if you never have a conversation with somebody about what it's like to actually apply it in the real world? And that's the key because what we learn is outside of the book. So we got to live outside of the bubble. Yeah. Okay. Last question. Marjorie, what is your personal branding superpower?
Thank you for asking me that. It took me a long time to discover it because I kept thinking about my own skills. I want to brand this, I want to brand that. And then after everything, the one thing that I'm absolutely really good at is actually creation. And here it is. I love having a vision and a goal and then creating the path to it. And I'm very good at it as long as I know what the end goal is in mind. People that know me know that like I would carry a machete in my car and cut down sugar cane if I needed to. I am willing to be that person to create a whole new path where no one else is willing to go. I will go in the jungle with my machete and say, let's go, guys. Someone else can make a better road, but I'm going to start it. That's my superpower. I can create.
I like it. I like it. Beth, what's your superpower? Your
My
branding superpower.
my superpower is, I'll say, simplify. So I've learned this about myself over the years, and I observe myself doing it all the time with our clients and with my team. I can take a pretty complex concept, like usually it's a technology, right? Like there's a technology sales guy, to your point, Connie, or a CEO or somebody that's trying to tell me exactly what their technology does. And I can actually simplify that into plain English that people understand. So I think that is my superpower, is simplification, being able to take complex thoughts, complex concepts, and make them understandable.
Okay, Connie?
Great. I'm going to be calling you for that, Beth.
Me too.
I think mine is more in terms of branding. And it's not something I do necessarily on purpose, but I remember everything about everyone. I remember, like, if you told me when your birthday was, I never forget it. If you told me about your kids' names, or that you have a dog, or that you love cats, like, I just remember that about people. And I think that's a way to connect with them, and it makes it about them. And it's always been the old, again, got age showing my age, but when you interview and you get the interviewer to do more talking than you have, and how powerful it is. I kind of do that with people I meet, and especially in a professional setting. I want to know their whole story. If they ask me a question, I'll answer it. But for the most part, I let them talk. And people don't get to talk about themselves a lot. And it's very flattering to them. And it's enjoyable to me to understand where they're coming from. So that's what I do.
So you're a good listener.
I am at work. I don't know that everyone would say I'm good at personal life, but I'm really good at it professionally.
Connie, I think you might have social awareness. That might be your superpower, social awareness.
Okay, there we go. Thank you. See, you just did Beth's trick of simplifying the 2-minute story I told into 2 words.
I think mine is kind of like Beth's, and it's more transformation. Like, I want to simplify it, but I will take it and I will make it relevant, and I'll make it relatable. And again, I always have to use this as an example. I do that in both places, whether it's church or whether it's work, it's the profession. Because when I talk with my students, I wanted to make it real, because what they read in their textbook is what their textbook says. But there was nowhere in a textbook that could tell you what it's like to get a chart thrown at you by a doctor that's mad you had to suspend him because he didn't have his stuff signed. Okay? So how do we make that real? And so it's like you transform things that they may say, I really don't understand this, and help them make it make sense. You know why I did so well teaching statistics? It's because I would tell students, use the did over could. How many people could die, and then how many people did die? Divide that. Then you'll get your answer. Divide it and multiply it by 100, you'll get your answer. And so that means if you had 100 patients and 52 of them did die, but all 100 could die, you got a 52% mortality rate. Oh, that makes sense. So it's kind of like what Beth said, but it's a combination of simplification and clarification. Because I can remember one time, I don't know if you all can relate, but I remember one of the most memorable sermons I ever preached was about the 3 Hebrew boys, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And the song that I used was the lyrics to, if loving you is wrong, I don't want to be right. And the people in the audience were like, oh, they didn't care that people didn't want them to. They did it because they wanted to. Yes, exactly. So it's just like, I want you to understand what I'm saying. Like, I don't want you to think that I'm using flowery words. I don't want you to think that I'm trying to be all, extravagant. I want to use it in simple terms to help you transform the way that you think about things so that you can apply it. So when you're walking down the street and you see something, you say, you know what? Dr. J told me about that. And you can apply it, because you can't apply stuff you don't understand. So I want you to understand it. So it's kind of a little bit of simplification and transformation. A little bit of both. So that's when. So like I said, those two, they oftentimes marry each other. They fight. They bump heads a lot. But that's a part of my life. That's a part of my brand. And it's, for years I tried to keep a strict firewall between the two. But there's so many parallels between the two. I often end up using those references in both places. So, but that's spirit led, data driven. It's a part of it. So, great conversation. Thank you all for your time tonight. Um, Everybody that has a chance to listen to this, today we learned that branding is just a buzzword. Your skills and marketing those skills and what you know how to do, that's a strategy. It's not only a strategy for you to have confidence, but it's also a strategy for you to be attractive to employers and for them to have confidence and faith in what it is that you can do. You already have those things to market: your skills, your story, your image. Tonight, we gave you a call to action. We want you to write your personal brand statement and then tag us. Let us know what it is. Thank you again to my incredible guests, Connie and Beth. Thank you to my co-host Marjorie, even though you're fighting that weather. Until next time, y'all stay high powered. Y'all have a good night.